Hey everyone, it's vmcampos, comic book fan, Rick and Morty fan. So I'm going to show you here the top 5 Rick and Morty comics you've got to own. Let's get started. Let's get started with some honorable mentions. We've got Forever Evil, Rogues Rebellion number 2 from DC Comics. Wait a minute, this is not Rick and Morty. Why is this a top comic to own? This is actually the first comic book appearance of Rick and Morty. Inside is an ad promoting the Rick and Morty cartoon show on Adult Swim. So if you've got a copy of this, this is the very first appearance of Rick and Morty in comic book format. Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion number 2. Another honorable mention is Rick and Morty Free Comic Book Day. So if you go over to your local comic shops, they've got Free Comic Book Day every year. You'll get a bunch of cool comics. And here is the Rick and Morty Free Comic Book Day special. Another honorable mention, El Rick y el Morty. This is the Spanish language version of Rick and Morty issue number 1. So if you can get a hold of this, an international version of Rick and Morty, comic book is really cool. And lastly, honorable mention is Rick and Morty number 1 Hot Topic edition. You could only get this copy of this Rick and Morty comic book if you went to Hot Topic on a certain day and bought $25 worth of Hot Topic merchandise. And then you would get a copy of this. Nowhere else. Alright, here we go. The top 5 Rick and Morty comics you've got to own. Number 5 is Rick and Morty number 1, 5th printing. So, this is an extremely popular comic series, of course, because Rick and Morty, the TV show, is extremely popular. So, they started publishing the comic books. It sold out so fast, you wouldn't believe it. So they went all the way up to 5th printing. So if you can get a copy of issue number 1, even a 5th printing, that's going to be really good. So here we've got the whole family on the cover and Mr. Poopy Butthole. And while the family is in their catatonic state, Rick and Morty are having adventures all over the universes and dimensions. Pretty cool. Number 4, Rick and Morty number 1, 4th printing. So this is a takeoff of the original cover, number 1, first print, but it's got Mr. Poopy Butthole. So after he was introduced in the TV show, was he real, was he not? They reprinted issue number 1, put him on the cover and said, yep, he was there all along, remember? So this is the 4th printing because the comic got so popular, people wanted it. Yeah, let's make a 4th printing. Cool. Number 3. Number 3 is Rick and Morty number 1, 3rd printing. Hey, this looks familiar. This looks like the Free Comic Book Day cover and the Hot Topic cover. Well, this is the original 3rd printing of issue number 1. If you weren't able to get the 1st or 2nd print, no problem, dog. We've got you covered with issue number 1, 3rd printing. Not as valuable as the first 2 printings, but still got some good bank going on. And how about some ice cream and happy feelings? Number 2 is Rick and Morty number 1, 2nd printing. So many Mortys. What's Rick gonna do? Hilarious expression. So once again, Rick and Morty, 1st printing of number 1 is worth big bucks, and it sold out so fast you wouldn't believe it. So they reprinted it, toot sweet, and you've got issue number 1, 2nd print. This one's still worth big bucks because not everyone could get issue number 1, 1st printing. So if you can get a copy of this, you'll be happy. Unlike Rick, who's like totally freaking out. And the number 1 Rick and Morty comic that you must have is Rick and Morty number 1, 1st printing. The Holy Grail, the one that's worth the big bucks. Yep, right there, issue number 1, 1st print. I got one on day 1 because it helps to be friends with a comic book shop owner. And this is it, Rick and Morty number 1, 1st printing, issue number 1, the one that started it all off in comic book format, the one that if you go check on eBay, you're gonna say, what the f***? Is it really worth that much? Yes, it really is worth that much, and getting more and more valuable by the millisecond. Hey, there's Squanchy. So there you go. Those are the top 5 Rick and Morty comics you've got to own. What do you think? Are there other issues that I missed? Or do you really just want to follow my advice and get issue number 1, as many copies as possible? leave me a message down there on the comments. And if you like this video and the others that I make, don't forget to head on over to patreon.com/vmcampos and think about becoming a Patreon contributor. For as little as $1 a month, you can keep me funded. But better yet, if you move up to the $2 tier, I will send you a cool comic book every single month for being a member. What a deal. This has been VM Campos. See you on Dimension C-138.